So about a month ago, I posted my Tears of the Kingdom NPC video focusing on returning characters from Breath of the Wild and if they recognized Link in Tears of the Kingdom. I went through and tracked down all of the returning NPCs, or at least so I thought, and sorted them into these categories of if they recognize Link, if they don't, if they just know of him or have heard of him, or if it's ambiguous and we have no way to sort them either way. Go check that video out if you haven't already, because this video is an addendum to that. Because despite all of the research that went into that video, I'm not infallible and mistakes happen. So I wanted to make a video addressing those mistakes and clarifying them or correcting them. But first off, I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched that video and also to those who left comments with their thoughts. I so appreciate it. It's already my 6th most watched video ever, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. So much time went into research for that video, and so many of your comments were so kind. It's frankly just from a human perspective as a creative individual, it's encouraging when you put a lot of work into something and people recognize that and are encouraging about it. Like so many comments were saying, oh, I can tell how much work went into this, thank you for putting this together, etc. That means a lot, it really does. So thank you to everyone who watched and commented. But again, despite all of the research that went into that video, I'm not infallible, so I wanted to make this addendum video to clarify some points, correct some errors, etc. That original video was heavily scripted. This one is not. This is not scripted. I just have bullet points and I'm going to just unscriptedly kind of talk about it. So forgive me if I ramble a bit or if I stumble over my words or whatnot. So the first correction I want to make is that in the original video, I mentioned that the StableMasters, the guys behind the counters at stables, all seemed to explicitly not recognize Link. Or at the very least, the first one you talk to doesn't, and then he gives you a membership and all of the other StableMasters know you because of the membership, meaning they know you from Tears of the Kingdom and not from Breath of the Wild. However, because of the way I did this video, the results are not necessarily accurate. I mentioned it at the start of that original video, but I wanted to make sure to get all of those initial pieces of dialogue with those characters, so I had to start a new save file. I didn't want to delete my original save file, so I did it on a new Switch profile, because you can't have multiple save files in this game. This new profile does not have Breath of the Wild save data. I made that profile just to record video footage, but therein lies the issue. Their dialogue is different if your Switch reads that you have Breath of the Wild save data. If you do, then they actually have record of your previous Breath of the Wild stable membership, and thus that's how you get to have your horses carry over. So while their dialogue still does have sort of an introductory segment, they also have record of Link, so I would actually shift all of those guys into the knows of category. Rather than explicitly remembering him, they just have record of him, so it's not quite the same thing. You could even shift them into the ambiguous zone if you wanted, but I think knows of is the best spot for them. The other point that I need to correct is the missing 10 characters that I said seem to have vanished and were not brought forward from Breath of the Wild into Tears of the Kingdom. There are about 10 characters from Breath of the Wild that seem to have vanished between games and therefore do not return, including Cass, and yes, I'm upset about it. This is wrong. Factually incorrect. The missing 10 characters is actually a missing 3, not 10. So that is completely my bad. I missed these 7 characters. I completely just didn't find them, despite specifically seeking them out. Part of my research process was that I wanted to find organically as many characters as I could and add them to my spreadsheet as I came across them. I had a list of all the characters from Breath of the Wild already beforehand, and so I was cross-referencing with that. If I could not find a character, then I started digging online and checking wikis and stuff, and if I couldn't find them and there was nothing in a wiki about it, then I marked them as missing. However, despite having put in hours and hours of research into this, it took only several hours for someone on Twitter to track down most of these NPCs, and so in anticipation of this addendum video, I booted up the game again and double-checked and found those missing 7 characters, except for Zyle. For some reason, I still could not find this guy, but I was able to find proof of his existence in the game through some digging around online. Desert Bee Games has a series of shorts talking about returning NPCs, and in one of her shorts, she found Zyle and checked up on him. So he's in the game. I couldn't find him. I still can't find him. I don't know why, but there he is. But it is very funny tracking down these other 6 because most of them I ended up also stumbling across organically while just playing the game for fun because I was like, oh shoot, it's that guy. It's frickin' Danton, who I could not find. The 3 that are still missing are Monk Koshia, Cass, and Villia. They're gone. I'm pretty sure they're just not in the game whatsoever. I'm gonna take a moment to shout out Nintendo Black Crisis, who actually made a video about that very subject, those 3 missing NPCs. But the other 7, yeah, that was my mistake. They are in the game, and I just somehow missed them. Now, how would I sort them? Well, 2 of them explicitly don't remember Link, and the rest are ambiguous. So it doesn't really skew the results or change them in any meaningful way as far as my findings go. I would have to go through and check for more, but there are cases like Amali here, the Rito, who is actually Cass's wife, by the way, who I had originally marked as ambiguous, but some of her dialogue, if you come back after doing some story stuff, is a bit different, and here she addresses Link by name. What's unclear is if she has suddenly heard of Link because of what happened in Tears of the Kingdom, or if she knew Link all along. The fact that it was ambiguous beforehand and now it's an explicit yes, she knows who you are now kind of makes me lean more towards putting her into that remembers him category, but it could really be argued either way, so maybe it's best to leave her in the ambiguous zone now. I don't know. In the video, I give Bolson a lot of attention because he is one of those characters that is a big sticking point for players. And the same can be said for some other characters like Beetle. I think it's important to remember that I had marked them down as ambiguous. A lot of people were debating things in the comments, and despite what I pointed out in the video, they continued to argue as if he did not recognize Link explicitly, even though half the point of the video is that it could be read either way. But I think that ambiguity got lost in a lot of the conversation happening in the comments section. Maybe I should have stressed that point some more or put more emphasis on that ambiguity, but I think that is an important facet of my thesis here, was that cases like Bolson are ambiguous. There's nothing to say explicitly that he does not recognize Link, it's just also never mentioned that he does either. So it's one of those cases where like an absence of evidence does not necessarily equate to evidence of absence, if that makes sense. But yeah, that ambiguity really did get lost in a lot of the conversation, and in fairness, part of that is due to the way I wrote the video. The point was that it could go either way, and maybe I didn't put enough emphasis on that. Another point I brought up near the end of the video was talking about why that ambiguity exists. One of the main points I brought up was that a lot of people might be playing Tears of the Kingdom who either didn't play Breath of the Wild, or maybe it's been a while and they don't remember. But something else a lot of people commented and brought attention to was the fact that everything that happened in Breath of the Wild, it's a bit shaky on what did or didn't happen depending on the players. For me, I am a completionist. I have completed Breath of the Wild 100%, multiple times. I probably did speak to every single NPC in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom, just when playing casually. But not everyone is a completionist. Not everyone scours every corner of the map. They just play until they feel like they're done, and that's it. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But essentially, there's no guarantee that Link actually did meet all 400 plus characters in his previous journey, because it really depends on how you play the game. This has sparked something of a greater conversation about what in Breath of the Wild is even canon to Tears of the Kingdom. Personally, I lean more towards a 100% run being canon, but a lot of people don't read it that way. A lot of people are pretty set on an interpretation of these events as being that Link did a very minimalist run, just did the Divine Beasts and main quests and then killed Ganon. It's possible that like what the canon experience of Breath of the Wild was is something kind of in the middle, but I do find a lot of things in Tears of the Kingdom, even just little environmental things, point towards it being a 100% run that was canon. There are destructible rocks in Breath of the Wild that are already already destroyed in Tears of the Kingdom, so those alcoves are exposed, for example. There are Korok puzzles that you did in Breath of the Wild where you roll a boulder into a hole, and that boulder's still in the hole in Tears of the Kingdom, and now the puzzle is taking it out of the hole and putting it on a little pedestal, for example. And there are a lot of little side quests and stuff that make reference to the previous game. There's this Gerudo Hylian couple. You helped her in Breath of the Wild by bringing her Molduga guts to make as medicine, and she references that quest in Tears of the Kingdom saying that, oh, a kind stranger brought me medicine before, or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact dialogue, but I'll have it up on screen here. Of course, she would remember Link just as a kind stranger because, again, he was in disguise when that interaction took place in Breath of the Wild, and you can't even get that disguise in Tears of the Kingdom to match the outfit, so it makes total sense that that character would interpret it as interactions with two different people. That makes total sense, but the point is that that was a totally optional side quest, and there are actually a lot of references like that in this game. Little things like that, little hooks into things where their stories continue in this game. I linked a video in the pinned comment and description of that original NPCs video that kind of explores that concept of following up the NPC's journey from one game to the next. I highly, highly, highly recommend watching it. It is such a good watch. But the point is that there are a lot of hooks from the one game into the next. There are a lot of references to the previous adventure, a lot of characters whose stories carry on like that. I just can't help but read into it and feel like, yeah, everything that I did, the 100% run that I did in Breath of the Wild is the canon experience. But maybe that ambiguity is meant to be there so that I can read it that way, but maybe someone who didn't play Breath of the Wild that way can read it in their own way, in a way that matched their journey. Maybe the game is designed in a way so that whatever you did in Breath of the Wild was canon to whatever you're doing now in Tears of the Kingdom, an isolated canon experience that differs player to player. Because heck, I've seen people say that the DLC is not canon, but the photo I got from Cass is still in the house in Tears of the Kingdom, so I don't know if I buy that. But it's only there if you did that DLC, so I think that ambiguity lends itself to player interpretation based on their personal experience, and I think that's great. It just might have been cool to have more characters have a sort of save data check system like that, but at the end of the day, it's not really the biggest deal if some characters are just written ambiguously. Anyways, I hope I've gotten the point across. This has gotten a little bit rambly, but I really did think it was important to make this addendum video, correct the things I frankly got flat out wrong, and clarify some points that I think maybe I didn't flesh out enough in the original video. So I want to say thank you all so much for watching, and a real quick shout out and thanks goes to my patrons and channel members. Shout out to Grey Mage, Brenda, Tetra, Justin, Midnight Naomi, Bunny, Stefan, and Avery. Thank you all so much for the support as always, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.